I'm Dave, and this is Logan, out once again for a walk in the New Forest. Thanks for joining us. Now, normally with these videos I do a circular walk, and I start off by putting a map up on screen, showing you the route that I'm going to be doing and pointing out some of the interesting things that we're going to see along the way. Something slightly different today, insofar as I'll be driving from location to location throughout the New Forest, because I'm looking for some of the ancient celebrity oak trees in the area, and in some instances it'll just be the locations of where they used to be. I'll explain everything as we go along. So I'll be going to different car parks, and what I'll do is I'll put the details up on screen as we go along, so that if you want to explore some of these trees, you might want to do so, incorporating them in some of your own walks. Now, I'm filming in the middle of January. You can see we're well wrapped up. Logan's got his thickest coat on because, well, it's just above freezing, but the sun is out and there's plenty of blue sky and there's no wind. And actually this is a good time of year to be doing this sort of thing, because with very little in the way of leaves on the trees, it should be easy to spot some of these trees in the deep forest. Fingers crossed. Okay, let's go. We'll start off with tree number 1, which is just over my right shoulder here. And there it is, the Knightwood Oak. Probably the best known oak in the entire New Forest. Indeed, it's often referred to as the Queen of the Forest. And it's certainly one of the biggest and one of the oldest oaks in the area. Whether it is the biggest or the oldest, well, we'll see. There are a few contenders that we might see in the video. I'll let you decide. Anyway, the tree here is thought to be anywhere between 350 and 600 years old. And it's got a girth of 7.62 metres, although I have seen another source suggest it's 7.5 metres. And you can see that it's been pollarded, where at some stage it was cut a couple of metres above the ground level to promote outward growth of branches rather than a single main trunk. And the idea was to increase the yield of timber from the tree. There was actually an Act of Parliament in 1698 that banned all pollarding of oak trees in the New Forest because, well, the Navy wanted single, long, strong trunks of wood for their ships. So that does sometimes help us age a tree, although some do appear to have still been pollarded after the Act. I guess some parts of a ship or a boat do need shorter, bendy bits. So the tree here is protected by a fence, and it's got an information board, it's got its own car park and signs directing folk from the car park to the tree. And there are seats near the tree for picnics. It's very much a tourist attraction and very easy to find as it appears on the Ordnance Survey map. It's just southwest of Lyndhurst, just off the A35. Of course, another reason for coming this time of year in the middle of January to check out the Knightwood Oak is that, well, you get it all to yourself. Well, the odd New Forest pony as well. Well, that's the first tree ticked off. Now, our second tree, I'm going to be able to use the same Knightwood Oak car park. It's just in front of me, but I won't show you because the sun is so low this time of year, it'll go straight into the screen. So the Knightwood Oak is just over to my left. I'm now going to start heading northwards along a forest track for about half a mile from my next tree, and Logan can stretch his legs a bit. Now, surely it's far too cold for a dog dip today. Yeah, I don't blame you. Maybe in the summer. A lovely little stream there. Is that a little robin over there? Doesn't seem to mind a whippet near it. Haha. Now, whilst Logan is on squirrel alert, I think we're very close to the next location. I did come here about 2 months ago and I took some notes. So, where I am now is where a couple of tracks converge, and I'm still in the Knightwood enclosure, but just ahead of me, see that gate ahead? That's the next enclosure. I think it's called Holidays Hill Enclosure. But just before there, yes, just on my right here, there's a track. Right, now looking at my notes, I need to go down this track and take 115 paces in an easterly direction and look out for a Christmas tree, and then take 20 paces to the south. It's a bit like looking for buried treasure. Ta-da! Found it. Now, I know what you're thinking. What on earth have I brought you all the way out into the middle of this forest just to show you a tree stump? Well, this was once one of the true giant oak trees of the New Forest. I was looking at an old 1895 map of the area, noticed that Peter's Oak had been annotated on it, but it doesn't appear on a 1958 map or indeed any later maps. And I tried to find information on it, but there's nothing, no old photos, no old paintings, nothing. But the Woodlands Trust Ancient Tree Inventory does list it. However, it does say that it is dead and is a stump. But it does go on to say that when it was alive, it had a girth of, wait for it, 8.6 metres, so significantly bigger than the Knightwood Oak is today. Now, I don't know too much about it, why it was called Peter's Oak. I've seen it called St. Peter's Oak. I don't know when it died, or when it actually came down. I did contact a lovely chap, Richard Reeves, a well-known historian who's an expert on the history of the New Forest, and he pointed me in the direction of the driver's map of 1814, I think it was, and that's based on the old 1787 survey, and it's listed there. And he reckons it might have been something called a bound tree, marking a boundary between, say, Bolderwood and Rhinefield Walks. Walks was an old subdivision of the New Forest. So there we go, St. Peter's Oak, or Peter's Oak. As I said, I don't know too much about its history or even how long it lived, but I feel that I've given my respects to, as I said, what was one of the true giants of the forest. Okay, we're now going to retrace our steps back to the car and head northwards to Bolderwood for our next destination, not too far away. Well, here we are at the next destination. We've driven up the Bolderwood Arboretum Ornamental Drive, and I've parked my car at the Forestry England car park at Bolderwood, just quite close to the deer sanctuary. And I've made my way southwards. I'm in a little bit of woodland, and I've got Bolderwood Cottage just behind me to the north. Now, why am I here? I was going to see if I can find the location of the King and Queen oaks. Now again, I use the Woodland Trust website, their ancient tree inventory, and they reckon that the trees were located to the west of here, about a half a mile away. And I have gone and had a little look, but I can't find anything there. It looks as though it's just an area of beech trees. There's certainly no oak trees there. Now, I have seen some old black and white photographs and indeed postcards of these two trees dated, well, 1890s, early 1900s. But they don't appear on an 1895 map as far as I can see. And I'd virtually given up trying to find them. But that wasn't until I discovered this lovely little booklet called New Forest Art, the Past and the Present. And it's produced by two local artists, Barry Peckham and Peter Frost. And they did a lot of research and located the sites of New Forest paintings produced by artists from the past. And they visited those locations and painted the same scenes as they are today. Well, Barry discovered a postcard of the two oaks and found the site. Sadly, both trees had rotted and the Queen had completely collapsed. Well, I contacted Barry and asked if he could kindly give me an idea as to where the trees were once located, and he gave me the full details. So the King's Oak is just by me to the left, and sadly it's nothing more than, well, it'll soon be a stump, won't it? But Barry reckoned that this is the King's Oak, and this is quite typical of a dying oak. It's got hollow and is gradually rotting away. But they reckon that when it was alive, it was well over 8 meters girth in circumference. And, well, the Queen's Oak, I have to be very careful where I put my feet, according to Barry, is just through the trees there. So let's go and have a look at that. And this is all that is left of what Barry believes to have been the Queen's Oak. It certainly is was a magnificent specimen, wasn't it? Sadly rotted away at the base and then blown over in the wind. And you can see Bolderwood Cottage in the far distance there. But I appreciate it's always a bit difficult when you're doing research and trying to find out these things, but if that was the Queen's Oak, if I slowly pan around, you see, if you look at those old 1895 photographs, the two oaks must be, what, 30 yards apart, 40 yards tops. If I look back at what remains of the King's Oak, it's got to be, what, 80, 90 yards away. Let's just go back to the King's Oak and see if there's any other evidence a little bit nearer to it. Okay, so I've made my way back to the King's Oak, which is just here. And this is the scene that Barry would have painted with the Queen's Oak. Well, I can just about see it through the trees there. But if I just slowly turn the camera around to the right, it's quite dark in here. About 30, 40 yards away, there are the remains of an oak tree up here on the right. Let's have a little investigation. Now, again, it is very dark in here, so the picture quality might not be that great, but yeah, so there's the King's Oak about 30, 40 yards away, and there is certainly remains of an oak tree here that would have been quite substantial. And of course, if you again comparing with the old photograph, there is a clear track between the two. Who knows? So there you go. Pretty sure that's the king oak, and the queen oak, well, it's not far from here. Why they were called the king and queen oaks, I don't know. Interestingly enough, just about 30 to 40 yards to the south is the location of one of those royal medieval hunting lodges. So maybe there was a connection there, I don't know. I've been talking a lot about girth measurement. They tend to measure oaks at around about 1.5 meters above the ground level, but it's not an exact science. I mean, the thing with oak trees, as they get older, their girths get bigger. It happens to us all, I'm afraid. But with oak trees, they tend to say they hollow out, and the trunk sort of splits and widens, and it gets to the case of, well, what are you actually measuring if most of it's hollow? And also, what do you do with burrs, which are those sort of growths that you see on the side of trees, usually due to an injury or a fungal growth? Do you include that or not? But that's why you tend to get quite a wide variety in measurements over the ages. But I think it's fair to say that they're pretty big here anyway. And I've been talking around about 7-8 meters. That's big for the New Forest. Apparently the soil around here isn't that great for oak trees. If you look elsewhere in the country, you'll get much bigger oaks, and I'll talk about those perhaps a little bit later on. Well, our next stop-off point, and this is going to be a quick one because it's quite a busy little road here. We're at one of the outskirts of Minstead, and right by me here is the Adam oak. And what a magnificent specimen it is too. So it's right on the side of the road, sticking out of the hedge. Now, as far as the size of its girth, I've seen a various number of sources: 7.35 meters, 7.5 meters, even a 7.97 meters. But at least it's alive, not like the more recent ones that we've seen in the video. And there is another oak, I think it's called the Eve oak, not too far away, that's only just slightly smaller. I say it's located on the sort of western side of the village, and we have done a walk here in the past, so if you haven't seen that video, do check it out. Well, I've now made my way to the western edge of the New Forest, north of Ringwood, Moyles Court, for what I think is my favourite tree in the whole of the New Forest, the Moyles Court oak. And I'm pleased to say it's been tidied up recently. It's, well, officially 7.23 metre girth, but it could well be bigger. And although it's smaller than the Knightwood Oak, many experts reckon it's actually older, just for the fact that it's growing slower. But it really is a smashing specimen. I really do love it. And if I just slowly pan around, that's Moyles Court School behind there. But literally a few yards away to the side is, well, possibly an even bigger tree that's often forgotten about. And it's actually got a larger girth than the Moyles Court Oak at 7.65 metres, but it's not in such good condition. As you can see, it's hollow and bulging out. So, as I said before, are you really comparing like with like? But it's still an old specimen for sure. Well, we've got one more oak to see, and hopefully there'll be enough sunlight for us to see it. But before we head off in that direction to the north, Logan's feeling a bit short-changed. He hasn't really had much of a walk, and seeing as we're at Moyles Court, and well, it's one of Logan's favourite places in the New Forest, the sand pit here. Time for some Whippet zoomies. Well folks, we've made it to our final destination. I mean the sun is just about to dip below the horizon. We're coming out to about 3:45. So where am I? I'm at Hale, which is right on the sort of northwestern edge of the New Forest. In fact, we are just outside of the New Forest perambulation, but just inside the New Forest National Park. And I've left the best to last. I'm actually at Hale Park, and I've just been walking, along a public footpath that goes by a lovely avenue of lime trees that leads up to Hale Park. We have done a walk there in the past. If you haven't seen it, do check out the video. And the tree, well, it's just behind me here. And isn't that a beauty? So hopefully you can see it in the gathering gloom. It's actually on private land, but you can get, 30 yards away from it, from the public footpath. And this oak, well, they say it's 8.93, 8.95 metres around its girth. So significantly larger than the Knightwood. And of course, this has got the great advantage of being out in the open, so it's not having to compete with light that some of the other oaks in the heart of the New Forest have got to do. And as far as, which is the biggest oak in England? Well, I know you've got the major oak in Sherwood Forest, which is about 11 metres, and that's very famous, although some folks say it could be multiple saplings fused together. And of course, Logan and I, when we did our walk through Cowdray Park at Midhurst in West Sussex, we passed the Queen Elizabeth oak. I think that's over 12.5 metres in diameter. But I think that the Bowthorpe oak in Lincolnshire, which is thought to be 1,000 years old, has got a girth of 13.4 metres, and that might be the record holder, although that too, I think, has got a large hollow trunk. Well folks, we've come to the end of our little tour of ancient oak trees of the New Forest. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up and a like, and do leave a comment. We're off to find somewhere nice and warm for some piping hot soup and a pint of local ale, probably the Fighting Cocks at Cod's Hill. So until we meet again, hopefully on a warmer day, thanks for watching and cheerio. Good boy.